I found his diary, and my name was on every page. Not just once or twice, but scrawled in desperate, looping handwriting, like he was trying to confess something he could never say out loud. My stepbrother, Ethan, the guy I'd lived with for 6 years, the one who barely looked me in the eye, had been hiding something so big it made my stomach twist just thinking about it. I was 19, he was 22, and we were supposed to be family, well, sort of. Our parents married when I was 13, and we'd grown up in this weird, tense space where we weren't quite siblings, but we weren't just roommates either. He was quiet, always sketching in his notebook, always keeping to himself. His room was his sanctuary, a chaotic mess of art supplies, crumpled sketch paper, and half-finished canvases leaning against the walls. I thought I knew him. I thought I knew everything about our little blended family, the way we navigated our shared space with polite smiles and unspoken rules. But that night, when I found his diary under his bed, everything I thought I knew unraveled like a thread pulled from a sweater. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I wasn't snooping, I swear. I was just looking for my phone charger, the one he always borrowed, and never returned. His room was a disaster, clothes strewn across the floor, paintbrushes scattered on his desk, a faint smell of turpentine lingering in the air. I'd always teased him about it, how he could find anything in that chaos. But that black leather notebook caught my eye, tucked under his mattress, the corner just barely sticking out like it was begging to be noticed. I don't know why I reached for it. Maybe it was curiosity, that nagging itch to know more about the brother I'd never quite cracked. Maybe it was the way he'd been acting lately, distant one moment, then weirdly intense the next, like he was always watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. His glances had started to feel heavier, like they carried a weight I couldn't understand. I pulled the notebook out, my fingers trembling, and opened it to a random page. My name was there, circled in red ink, Clara. And then the words that made my heart stop. I don't know how to stop loving her. She's my stepsister. This is so wrong. My hands shook as I read on, page after page of his thoughts, his feelings, spilling out like a confession he'd been holding back for years. Each sentence was a gut punch, raw and unfiltered, like he'd poured his soul into those pages. How do you face someone who's hiding something this forbidden? How do you go back to normal when you know a truth that changes everything? Let's rewind a bit, because this didn't start with the diary. It started years ago, when our parents got married and turned my life upside down. I'm Clara, by the way. I was 13 when my mom met David, Ethan's dad, at some community fundraiser for the local library. They were both single parents, both carrying the scars of messy divorces, both desperate to rebuild something stable. Mom and I were living in a cramped apartment back then, scraping by on her teacher's salary. David's house, a big, creaky place in the suburbs of Chicago, felt like a mansion by comparison. When we moved in, I was in 8th grade, still figuring out who I was, and Ethan was already there, 16 and sullen, with his dark hair always falling in his eyes and a sketchbook glued to his hands. He wasn't mean, just distant. Like he'd built a wall around himself that nobody could climb. I figured he hated the idea of a new family as much as I did. I mean, who wants a stranger and her kid moving into their house, rearranging their life? Living together was awkward at first. We weren't kids anymore, but we weren't adults either. Our parents tried to make us bond, family dinners where we'd sit in silence, game nights that ended in arguments over Monopoly rules, even a disastrous camping trip where Ethan and I got stuck sharing a tent because it started pouring rain. I remember him barely talking, just sketching by the campfire, his face half lit by the flames, the crackle of the fire filling the silence between us. I thought he was annoyed with me, saw me as some annoying kid who'd invaded his space. But over the years, we settled into a kind of rhythm. We'd pass each other in the hall, share the occasional sarcastic joke about our parents' bad taste in music, fight over the TV remote when he wanted to watch some artsy documentary, and I just wanted reruns of sitcoms. Normal stuff, right? Or so I thought. By the time I was 19, I was in my first year of college, still living at home to save money. Ethan was in his final year, studying art at a local university, always buried in his projects. He'd gotten quieter, if that was even possible. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at me, across the dinner table, in the living room when I was doing homework, his eyes lingering just a second too long. It gave me this weird prickle on my skin, like static electricity. I brushed it off. He was just Ethan, my weird stepbrother who'd rather draw than talk. But there were moments that didn't add up. Like the time he fixed my bike tire without me asking, spending an hour in the garage with grease on his hands, muttering about how I needed to take better care of my stuff. Or the time he left a cup of coffee on my desk during finals week, a sticky note attached that just said "Don't die." I laughed it off, thought it was just him being nice in his awkward way. I didn't know he was hiding something so much bigger, something that would turn our fragile family dynamic into a minefield. That's where the diary comes in. It was a Friday night, and I was exhausted from a long week of classes. I'd been charging my phone in Ethan's room earlier that day. He had the only outlet in the house that didn't spark when you plugged something in. Our old house was a mess of faulty wiring and creaky floors, and his room was the only place I could reliably charge my stuff. When I went to grab my charger, I saw it was tangled under his bed, caught in a mess of extension cords and crumpled sketch paper. I reached for it, and my fingers brushed against something hard. That black leather notebook. It wasn't just a sketchbook, it was heavier, more deliberate, like it held something important. I don't know why I pulled it out. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe it was the way Ethan had been acting, like he was carrying a weight he couldn't share, always leaving the room when I entered, his jaw tight like he was biting back words. Or maybe I was just nosy, tired of feeling like an outsider in his world. But when I saw my name in his handwriting, my heart started pounding so loud I thought it would wake the whole house. I sat on the floor, the charger forgotten, and started reading. January 12th. Clara was in the kitchen today, laughing at some dumb joke her friend texted her. I couldn't stop watching her. The way her hair falls over her shoulder, the way her laugh fills the room. I hate myself for it. She's my stepsister. This isn't supposed to happen. I froze. My name. His feelings. It was like the world tilted sideways, the floor dropping out from under me. I kept reading, page after page, each entry more raw than the last. He wrote about how he tried to stop feeling this way, how he'd avoided me for weeks at a time, locking himself in his room or staying late at the art studio. He wrote about lying awake at night, hating himself for wanting something he knew was wrong, something that could tear our family apart. My stomach churned with a mix of shock, guilt, and something I couldn't name, pity, maybe, or fear. Ethan, quiet, awkward Ethan, who'd always been a mystery, was in love with me. And he'd been hiding it for years, each word in that diary a cry he couldn't voice. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes I saw his handwriting, those words looping in my head, I don't know how to stop loving her. It wasn't just a crush, some fleeting thought he'd get over. This was years of pent-up feelings, spilled out in ink, hidden under his bed like a dirty secret. And the worst part? I didn't know what to feel. Part of me was angry. How could he let this happen? How could he write these things about me, his stepsister, knowing how wrong it was? But another part, the part one didn't want to admit existed, was curious. Not in a romantic way, not like that. But curious about him, about what it must be like to carry something so heavy, so forbidden, for so long. It made me question everything I thought I knew about him. About us. About the fragile balance of our family. The next morning, I avoided him. I stayed in my room, pretending to study, but really I was rereading the diary, my hands shaking as I turned each page. I know, it was wrong. I should have put it back, pretended I never saw it, let him keep his secret. But I couldn't stop. Each entry was like a window into Ethan's head, and the more I read, the more I realized how deep this went, how much he was suffering. March 3rd. She wore that blue sweater today, the one that makes her eyes look like the sky. I wanted to tell her she looked beautiful, but I just mumbled something about the dishes instead. I'm such a coward. I can't even look at her without feeling like I'm drowning. April 15th. I saw her with that guy from her class today. They were laughing in the driveway, leaning against his car, and I wanted to punch him. Not because he did anything wrong, but because I can't have what he has. I'll never be able to tell her. I'll never be that guy. Every word was a punch to the gut. Ethan wasn't just in love with me, he was tortured by it. He wrote about trying to date other people, going out with girls from his art classes, but it never worked. He'd come home and write about how none of them were me, how he'd see my face in every crowd. He wrote about the guilt, the shame, the fear that our parents would find out, that it would destroy the family they'd worked so hard to build. And then there was the entry that made my heart stop, written just a few weeks ago, June 10th. I almost told her tonight. We were alone in the living room, watching some dumb movie she picked. She was sitting so close, her shoulder brushing mine, her laugh filling the space between us. I could have said it. I could have ruined everything. But I didn't. I can't. She'd hate me. I remembered that night. It was one of those rare moments when it was just the two of us, our parents out at some work event. I'd picked a cheesy rom-com, thinking it'd lighten the mood, but Ethan was so tense, his hands clenched in his lap like he was holding himself together. When I leaned against him to grab the popcorn bowl, he jumped up and left the room, muttering something about needing water. I thought he was just being his usual weird self. Now I knew he was scared, fighting a battle I didn't even know existed. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront him? Pretend I never saw it? The diary was burning a hole in my brain, and every time I heard his footsteps in the hall, my heart raced like I was the one with something to hide. I started noticing things I hadn't before, the way he'd linger in the kitchen when I was making coffee, pretending to look for something in the fridge. The way he'd ask about my day in this careful, guarded tone, like he was afraid of saying too much. It wasn't just my imagination. He was hiding this huge, impossible thing, and now I was part of it whether I wanted to be or not. I felt trapped, like I'd stumbled into a secret I was never meant to know. The tension in the house got worse. Our parents were oblivious, chattering about their upcoming anniversary trip, planning barbecues and family outings like everything was fine. But I felt like I was walking on eggshells, every interaction with Ethan charged with this unspoken truth. He must have sensed something was off, because he started avoiding me even more. He'd leave the room when I walked in, eat dinner in his room with the door closed, disappear for hours with his sketchbook tucked under his arm. I wanted to scream at him, I know what you're hiding. But I couldn't. What would I even say? Hey, I read your diary, and I know you're in love with me. It was too big, too messy, too raw. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure what I felt. I didn't love him, not like that. I couldn't. He was my stepbrother, family in every way that mattered. But I cared about him, more than I'd ever admitted. He was the guy who'd stayed up with me when I was sick, who'd helped me with algebra when I was failing, who'd always been there in his quiet, awkward way. And now I was carrying his secret, too, like a weight pressing down on both of us. A week after I found the diary, things came to a head. It was late, past midnight, and I was in the kitchen grabbing a glass of water, the house dark and quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Ethan walked in, his hair messy, his eyes tired. He froze when he saw me, his gaze darting to the floor like he couldn't bear to look at me. "Can't sleep?" he asked, his voice tight, like he was forcing the words out. I nodded, my throat dry, my hands gripping the glass so hard I thought it might break. We stood there in silence, the air thick with everything unsaid. I wanted to ask him about the diary, to make him explain, to make this tension go away. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I said something stupid about the weather, how it was supposed to rain tomorrow, and he gave me this look, like he knew I was hiding something, too. Like he could see right through me. July 20th. She's acting weird. Does she know? I swear I saw her looking at me differently today, like she's scared of me. Or maybe I'm imagining it. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep living in this house, pretending everything's fine. I need to leave. That entry was from 2 days ago. Leave? Where was he going? My heart pounded as I read it, the diary hidden under my pillow now, like I was the one with something to hide. The idea of him running away, disappearing because of this secret, made my chest ache. I couldn't let that happen. But what could I do? Confronting him felt like stepping off a cliff, like I'd be opening a door we could never close. Ignoring it felt like betraying him, letting him carry this alone. I was stuck, caught in this impossible space between right and wrong, love and family, truth and silence. The next few days were torture. I kept the diary hidden in my room, under my own mattress now, like I was the one with something to hide. I read it over and over, trying to make sense of Ethan's words, trying to figure out what to do. The more I read, the more I saw him, not the quiet, distant guy I'd known for years, but someone raw, vulnerable, and deeply conflicted. His entries weren't just about his feelings for me. They were about his fear of ruining our family, his guilt for even thinking about me this way, his struggle to be the good son our parents expected. He wrote about how he tried to be normal, to act like the stepbrother I deserved, but every time he was near me, it was like fighting a current pulling him under. August 1st. I tried to draw her today. I couldn't get her eyes right. They're too alive, too real, like they see through me. I keep thinking about what it would be like to tell her, to just say it and let the world fall apart. But I can't. She's my stepsister. This isn't a movie. This is real life, and in real life, this kind of thing destroys everything. I started seeing Ethan differently. Not romantically, I wasn't there, and I don't think I ever could be. But I saw the weight he was carrying, the way he'd been hiding this for years, maybe since the day we moved in. I remembered little moments I'd brushed off, times he'd gone out of his way to help me, like when he spent hours fixing my laptop when it crashed, or when he'd sit with me in the backyard during summer, both of us reading in silence, the air comfortable in a way I hadn't appreciated. I'd thought he was just shy, or maybe annoyed with me for taking up space in his life. Now I knew better. And that knowledge was heavy, like a stone in my chest. It made me question everything, our family, our home, even myself. Had I done something to make him feel this way? Had I been too friendly, too close, too unaware of the boundaries we were supposed to keep? Was I part of the problem? I started watching him more closely, trying to see the signs I'd missed. He was still avoiding me, but there were moments when our eyes would meet, across the breakfast table, in the hallway as we passed, and I'd feel this jolt, like we were both holding the same secret now. One night, I caught him sketching in the living room, his pencil moving furiously across the page, his brow furrowed in concentration. I asked what he was drawing, trying to sound casual, but he slammed the sketchbook shut so fast it made me jump. "Nothing," he muttered, his face red, his hands shaking as he shoved the book under a cushion. I knew he was lying. I wondered if it was me, if he was drawing the same thing he wrote about in his diary, my eyes, my smile, the things he couldn't say out loud. The tension was unbearable, but I still couldn't bring myself to confront him. What if he denied it? What if he admitted it? What if it broke our family apart? Our parents were so happy together, always laughing about their shared quirks, planning their future like it was a given we'd all be part of it. If they knew about this, it would ruin everything, their marriage, our home, the fragile peace we'd built. And yet, I couldn't just ignore it. Ethan was suffering, and now I was, too. I started having nightmares, about him leaving, about our parents finding the diary, about it being read aloud at the dinner table, their faces crumpling as they realized what he'd written. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing, the diary still hidden under my mattress like a ticking time bomb. Then, one afternoon, I came home from class and found Ethan packing a bag. Not just a weekend bag, a big one, like he was moving out. Clothes were piled on his bed, his art supplies stuffed into a duffel, his sketchbook nowhere in sight. My stomach dropped. "Where are you going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but it came out shaky, desperate. He didn't look at me, just kept shoving clothes into the bag, his movements jerky, like he was trying to outrun something. I got an internship, he said, his voice flat. In New York. I leave tomorrow. Tomorrow? He hadn't mentioned anything about an internship. Our parents hadn't said a word. This wasn't a plan. This was him running, escaping the secret he couldn't face, the secret I now carried too. I don't know what came over me, but I couldn't let him go, not like this. Ethan, wait, I said, my voice breaking. He froze, his back to me, his hands gripping the edge of the bag so hard his knuckles turned white. We need to talk. He turned slowly, his eyes meeting mine, and for the first time I saw it, the fear, the guilt, the longing, all laid bare like an open wound. About what? He asked, but his voice was barely a whisper, like he already knew the answer. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. The diary was burning in my mind, every page, every confession, every jagged piece of his heart. I wanted to tell him I knew. I wanted to tell him it was okay, that we could figure this out, that he didn't have to run. But all I could do was stand there, my heart pounding, the air between us thick with everything we weren't saying. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't keep the diary hidden anymore. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I sat at my desk, the house quiet except for the distant hum of the air conditioner, and wrote a letter, not to Ethan, but to myself, trying to make sense of what I was feeling. I wrote about the guilt, the confusion, the fear of shattering our family into pieces. I wrote about how I didn't love him the way he loved me, how I couldn't, but how I cared about him too much to let him destroy himself over this. I wrote about the moments we'd shared, not romantic, but human, like when we'd stayed up late talking about our favorite books, or when he'd taught me how to use his fancy art pens, his hands steady as he guided mine. I didn't know if I'd ever show him the letter, but writing it made me realize something. I had to confront him. Not to hurt him, not to shame him, but to set him free. To set us both free. But the next morning, Ethan was gone. His room was empty, his bag, his sketchbook, his phone charger, all gone. He'd left a note for our parents on the kitchen counter, something vague about an internship and needing space to figure things out. But he didn't leave anything for me. I stood in his empty room, the diary still hidden in mine, and felt like I'd failed him. I'd had the chance to say something, to stop him, to make him stay and face this with me, and I didn't. I'd let him run, carrying that secret alone, and the weight of it crushed me. But then I found it, tucked under my pillow, of all places, like he'd slipped it there in the middle of the night. A single page torn from his diary, with my name at the top in his familiar, messy handwriting. Clara, I'm sorry. I know you found it. I saw you take it. I'm leaving because I can't keep pretending. You don't have to say anything. Just, don't hate me. My heart broke. He knew I'd read it. He'd known all along, maybe since that night in the kitchen when I couldn't meet his eyes. And he'd still left, thinking I hated him, thinking he had no other choice. I didn't hate him. I couldn't. I sat on my bed, reading that page over and over, tears streaming down my face, blurring the ink. Ethan wasn't a villain. He was just a guy who felt something he couldn't control, something that tore him apart from the inside out. I don't know if I'll ever see him again. I don't know if he'll come back, or if our family will ever be the same. But I do know this: some secrets are too heavy to carry alone. And sometimes, the only way to move forward is to let them out, no matter how much it hurts, no matter how much it costs. So, what would you do if you found a secret like this? Would you confront it, risk everything to bring it into the light? Or would you let it stay buried, hoping it would disappear on its own? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading every single one, and I want to know what you think. If this story hit you as hard as it hit me, smash that like button and share it with someone who loves a good emotional roller coaster. Subscribe for more stories that make you feel everything, the kind that stick with you long after the video ends. I'll see you in the next one.